and a good afternoon, everybody. The Chattering Magpie here. We're so excited because, the gang and I, we're so excited because we get to read together once again in this channel. Hey gang, how are you?
Hello! Salutations!
Hi, everybody.
It's been a while, you guys, since we went live in this, the original, the first, the OG, the Chattering Magpie channel. Because last time we were together, we were doing Hannah and we finished those, kind of like chit-chats. And then we covered as far as there was chapters, and then we just kind of said like, well, we'll catch you later. So this is later, and so excited to be back. We have been actually meeting, though, really regularly, twice a week, over on my other Reads channel. So if you have been missing those chit-chats, those, the gang doing the things that they do, and me saying random stuff, do join us over on my other channel, the Chattering Magpie Reads, because it's all just a whole bunch of fun. However...
Wow, I didn't have to remind you to do that this time.
Yeah. I'll plug in the channel again towards the end, so don't you worry. But for now, I just want to say hello to everybody who's joining us on YouTube. Let's see, early gang. I see that Teal says, hooray for Anne of Green Gables, hooray for emotes. Yes, you guys, as you notice, I have activated memberships in this channel. You get to have little badges that show like how long you've been a supporter for, and you also get emojis. And at the higher levels, so there's 2 levels. The next level, you get also access to Discord. You get basically the same perks that I used to offer over on Ko-fi. So just check it out. Click on join on that button. Don't worry, it will not suck money from your credit card account, from your bank account the moment you click join. It's just so you can see what it offers. So go on ahead and check it out. So yeah, as you see, Teal is already a member. Thank you, Teal, for supporting. Also, Hirami is a member and also is on the chat. So thank you guys for supporting. Of course, everybody on this call also is a member through Ko-fi too.
I was going to say, I'm also a member.
I know. I'm trying to shill the YouTube membership, so please don't get too offended. I'm just trying to expand the knowledge of this new way to support the channel. We also have...
wow, there's so many names that I haven't seen in so long.
I'll get to them. I want to say hi to every single one. Next is Bruno SS says, OMG, I love Anne of Green Gables. It was the first book that I read in English. Oh yeah, I think for a lot of us, it holds a deep and dear place in our hearts. Especially for me, I also read it soon after I started learning English. So yeah, I'm with you there. I'm glad that we get to share it with other folks who probably have not read this work. So happy to see you here. Also, Little Butterfly says, hi everyone, I just love the story. Happy to see you here, Little Butterfly, and I hope you can join us on the server if you can. Let's see who else. Oh, I lost my place. Let's see, we had Yukihime says, hey, so excited to read a new story, everyone. Happy to see you here, Yukihime, welcome. Hirami, of course, says Anne of Green Gables, and of course with the emojis, there's Little Heartmut, darling Little Heartmut. We have White Rose K says, oh my god, yes, my favorite book, and also the Anne version series. Are you watching it? You better be watching it. I'm going to be covering it on this channel, you guys, so I hope you're excited for that. I'm 50% done, or maybe like 60% done with the editing, so before Friday is my goal. Like, if Friday rolls around and you don't see a video up, it's probably because I passed out, I got isekai'd, I don't know. It's gonna happen before Friday, you guys. It has to happen before Friday. So expect it. Welcome, White Rose. Noodles, dumplings, kimchi. Hey, darling, it's been such a long time. Oh my gosh. How's everyone? We are all doing good. Missing you. Happy to see you here. Fuji petals floating in the river. Wow, what a beautiful name you have there. It's like straight out of an Ella Montgomery book. Welcome, and says how to get a Ferdinand emote. You can get a Ferdinand emote thusly. Oh, look, Hirami says in the chat. Says you're doing bad? Why are you doing bad? Fuji, I hope that you feel better after you hang out with us for a little bit and you read Anne of Green Gables. I'm sorry, and I send you all sorts of hugs. Here, have a whole bunch of hugs. I hope you see them. I'm sending you a lot of hearts. There. Do you feel better now? Do you feel better now? All right. I hope you stick around though.
She'll
Fuji.
send you hearts until you feel better, so you better feel better.
Right. Hirami likes the stream backgrounds. I am so happy you like them. I got them straight out of the anime, which is gorgeous. So yeah, I can't take much credit for it. Bruno SS says, oh, I watched all of the anime and read all of the other Anne of Green Gables books, except for the last one. For some reason, whenever I try to read it, something else happens and I end up forgetting. Are you talking about the Blights are quoted, or are you talking about Rilla of Ingleside? Because I haven't read the Blights are quoted, but I did read Rilla of Ingleside. So let me know which one it is. Hirami Yes, Hirami is inviting Fuji Petals to join us, and thank you, Hirami, for that. Fuji Petals says, Fernestine makes a beautiful emote. Eventually, when I get more... Okay, so this is the deal, you guys. I get X amount of emojis, and YouTube tells me, okay, when you reach a certain amount of members, we will give you more slots for more emojis. So I can't add Fernestine until I get more members to join. So if you want to get us to the point where I can have dozens and dozens of beautiful little emojis, please join if you're able to. And now Yukihime, I won't get isekai. I won't. God willing. All right, and Patrick, don't think I did not see your comments here and your support, Patrick. I did see them and I thank you for them. Says don't forget to like, subscribe, and support your magpie. Yes, please don't. I appreciate all of your support, and here have a whole bunch of hearts in appreciation for your support, Patrick. And Fuji Petals also feels better. Yay! There you go. Oh my gosh, Patrick has now become a member. Patrick, welcome. All right, Patrick is now a member at the noble tier. Cool, welcome.
Yes, I'm a noble, so I look down my nose at the rest of you.
Well,
you plebeians.
Okay, Patrick, tone it down, my dear. Tone it down.
I know.
Everybody here is special. Thank you so much for your support. All right, so Bruno does confirm it's Rilla of Ingleside. Yeah, I can see why, because of the setting and what's going on. If you need support as you read it, if you pick it up and you need emotional support as you read it, don't be afraid to hit me up. I will hold your hand. It's a good book. But it is an emotional ride. Let's see. I see Lisa, and Lisa is also here. Lisa, hey, Lisa has been a member also at the noble tier, so she has been supporting for a while now. So thank you also. Welcome, Lisa. Happy to see you. White Rose K says, watch the anime version, never the book, but I wanted to. Well, that's why you're here. We are going to get you into that. So happy to see everybody here. I think I said hello to everybody who has been on the chat. I think it's time that we get started. Let's see. So, you guys, today we're going to be reading Anne of Green Gables. I probably should pull up the blurb, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Maybe not. Maybe it's not self-explanatory. I'm just going to give you like a background. Anne of Green. I'm looking for it in my phone so I can read it. So Anne of Green Gables is a Well, here they give me a Japanese. No. I want Gables novel. All right. So Anne of Green Gables is a story about a girl who hold on a second. I found it. Here we go. Here we go. Anne of Green Gables is a 1908 novel by Canadian author Lucy Maud Montgomery. Written for all ages, it has been considered a classic children's novel since the mid-20th century. But don't let it fool you. Just because it's a children's novel doesn't mean you won't enjoy it. I think you will love it. It's set in the late 19th century, and the novel recounts the adventures of an 11-year-old orphan girl called Anne Shirley, sent by mistake to two middle-aged siblings, Matthew and Marilla Cuthbert, who had originally intended to adopt a boy to help them on their farm in the fictional town of Avonlea in Prince Edward Island, Canada. So the novel recounts how Anne makes her way through life with the Cuthberts, in school and within the town. All right, today we are going to read probably more than one chapter. We're planning to do at least 3, so we'll see where we get.
I just wanted to mention someone was asking if we were talking about the 1980s Anne of Green Gables anime, and I figured we should clear that up.
Okay. So, there is a 1979 version, Akage no An, which is the cult classic, I guess. It's beloved by many people who have been watching anime since they were kids. We're not talking about that one. You see, this year, actually in April 5th, just last Saturday, a reboot came out. It's called Anne Shirley. So I'm going to be covering Anne Shirley over here in this channel. Going to be covering it episode by episode, going to review it, going to compare it to the book, what things they left out of the book, and just my overall impressions. So we're going to be just talking about the 2025 version. But here we're just going to be reading the book. So if you haven't watched that version, it's totally fine. We're just going to read book here. I hope that answers your questions.
We read book good.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's do this, you guys. Let's read chapter 1. The following people are going to be reading today, so here we go. Rachel will be read by Hirami. Marilla will be read by Teal. The station official will be read by Magpie, unless somebody else joined. No, nobody else has joined. Okay. Matthew is going to be read by Patrick. Patrick, you'll have like 2 lines. Sorry. And Anne is going to... Well,
after all those sappy Eckhart lines, I'm good for a little break.
all those letters, right? Okay, cool. Enjoy your break. And then finally, reading Anne is going to be Yukihime. Yukihime, best of luck. I hope you're hydrated. Let's do this.
I got water nearby. I'm good.
Good. All right, let's do this. Anne of Green Gables by Ella Montgomery. Chapter 1. Mrs. Rachel Lynde is surprised. Mrs. Rachel Lynde lived just where the Avonlea main road dipped down into a little hollow, fringed with alders and ladies' eardrops, and traversed by a brook that had its source away back in the woods of the old Cuthbert place. It was reputed to be an intricate headlong brook in its earlier course through those woods, with dark secrets of pool and cascade. But by the time it reached Lynde's Hollow, it was a quiet, well-conducted little stream, for not even a brook could run past Mrs. Rachel Lynde's door without due regard for decency and decorum. It probably was conscious that Mrs. Rachel was sitting at her window, keeping a sharp eye on everything that passed, from brooks and children, up, and that if she noticed anything odd or out of place, she would never rest until she had ferreted out the whys and wherefores thereof. There are plenty of people in Avonlea and out of it who can attend closely to their neighbors' business by dint of neglecting their own. But Mrs. Rachel Lynde was one of those capable creatures who can manage their own concerns and those of other folks into the bargain. She was a notable housewife. Her work was always done and well done. She ran the sewing circle, helped run the Sunday school, and was the strongest prop of the Church Aid Society and Foreign Missions Auxiliary. Yet, with all of this, Mrs. Rachel found abundant time to sit for hours at her kitchen window, knitting cotton warp quilts. She had knitted 16 of them, as Avonlea housekeepers were wont to tell in odd voices, and keeping a sharp eye on the main road that crossed the hollow and wound up the steep red hill beyond. Since Avonlea occupied a little triangular peninsula jutting out into the Gulf of St. Lawrence, with water on two sides of it, anybody who went out of it or into it had to pass over that hill road and so run the unseen gauntlet of Mrs. Rachel's all-seeing eye. She was sitting there one afternoon in early June. The sun was coming in at the window, warm and bright. The orchard on the slope below the house was in a bridal flush of pinky white bloom, hummed over by a myriad of bees. Thomas Lynde, a meek little man whom Avonlea people called Rachel Lynde's husband, was sowing his late turnip seed on his field beyond the barn, and Matthew Cuthbert ought to have been sowing his on the big red brook field away over by Green Gables. Mrs. Rachel knew that he ought because she had heard him tell Peter Morrison the evening before in William J. Blair's store over at Carmody that he meant to sow his turnip seed in the next afternoon. Peter had asked him, of course, for Matthew Cuthbert had never been known to volunteer information about anything in his whole life. And yet, here was Matthew Cuthbert at 3:30 on the afternoon of a busy day, placidly driving over the hollow and up the hill. Moreover, he wore a white collar and his best suit of clothes, which was plain proof that he was going out of Avonlea, and he had the buggy and the sorrel mare, which betokened that he was going a considerable distance. Now, where was Matthew Cuthbert going, and why was he going there? Had it been any other man in Avonlea, Mrs. Rachel, deftly putting this and that together, might have given a pretty good guess as to both questions. But Matthew so rarely went from home that it must be something pressing and unusual which was taking him. He was the shyest man alive and hated to have to go among strangers or to any place where he might have to talk. Matthew, dressed up with a white collar and driving in a buggy, was something that didn't happen often. Mrs. Rachel, ponder as she might, could make nothing of it, and her afternoon's enjoyment was spoiled.
I would just step over to Green Gables after tea and find out from Marilla where he's gone and why.
The worthy woman finally concluded.
He doesn't generally go to town this time of year, and he never visits. If he'd run out of turnip seeds, he wouldn't dress up and take the buggy to go for more. He wasn't driving fast enough for to be going for a doctor. Yet something must have happened since last night to start him off. I'm clean puzzled. That's what. And I won't know a minute's peace of mind of conscience until I know what was taking Matthew Cuthbert out of Avonlea today.
Accordingly, after tea, Mrs. Rachel set out. They had not far to go. The big, rambling, orchard-embowered house where the Cuthberts lived was a scant quarter mile up the road from Lynde's Hollow. To be sure, the long lane made it a good deal further. Matthew Cuthbert's father, as shy and silent as his son after him, had got as far away as he possibly could from his fellow men without actually retreating into the woods when he founded his homestead. Green Gables was built at the furthest edge of his cleared land, and there was, to this day, barely visible from the main road along which all the other Avonlea houses were so sociably situated. Mrs. Rachel Lynde did not call living in such a place living at all.
It's just staying, that's what.
She said as she stepped along the deep rutted grassy lane bordered with wild rose bushes.
It's no wonder Matthew and Marilla are both a little odd, living away back there by themselves. Trees are much company, though there knows if they were there'd be enough of them. I'd rather look at people. To be sure, they seem content enough. But then I suppose they're used to it. A body can get used to anything, even to being hanged, as the Irishman said.
With this, Mrs. Rachel stepped out of the lane into the backyard of Green Gables. Very green and neat and precise was that yard, set about on one side with great patriarchal willows, and on the other with prim Lombardies. Not a stray stick nor stone was to be seen, for Mrs. Rachel would have seen it if there had been. Privately, she was of the opinion that Marilla Cuthbert swept that yard over as often as she swept her house. One could have eaten a meal off the ground without overbrimming the proverbial peck of dirt. Mrs. Rachel rapped smartly at the kitchen door and stepped in when bidden to do so. The kitchen at Green Gables was a cheerful apartment, or would have been cheerful, if it had not been so plainly clean as to give it something of the appearance of an unused parlor. Its windows looked east and west. Through the west one, looking out onto the backyard, came a flood of mellow June sunlight. But the east one, whence you got a glimpse of the bloom-white cherry trees in the left orchard, and nodding slender birches down in the hollow by the brook, was greened over by a tangle of vines. Here sat Marilla Cuthbert, when she sat at all, always slightly distrustful of sunshine, which seemed to her too dancing and irresponsible a thing for a world which was meant to be taken seriously. And here she sat now, knitting, and the table behind her was laid for supper. Mrs. Rachel, before she had fairly closed the door, had taken a mental note of everything that was on the table. There were 3 plates laid. So Marilla must be expecting someone home with Matthew to tea. But the dishes were everyday dishes, and there was only crabapple preserves and one kind of cake, so that the expected company could not be particular company. Yet what of Matthew's white collar and the sorrel mare? Mrs. Rachel was getting fairly dizzy with this unusual mystery about quiet, unmysterious Green Gables.
Good evening, Rachel.
Marilla said briskly.
This is a real fine evening, isn't it? Won't you sit down? How are all your folks?
Something that, for lack of any other name, might be called friendship, existed and had always existed between Marilla Cuthbert and Mrs. Rachel, in spite of, or perhaps because of, their dissimilarity. Marilla was a tall, thin woman, with angles and without curves. Her dark hair showed some gray streaks, and was always twisted up in a hard little knot behind, with 2 wire hairpins stuck aggressively through it. She looked like a woman of narrow experience and rigid conscience, which she was. But there was a saving something about her mouth which, if it had been ever so slightly developed, might have been considered indicative of a sense of humor.
We are all pretty well,
said Mrs. Rachel.
I was kind of afraid you weren't, though, when I saw Matthew starting off today. I thought maybe he was going to the doctor's.
Marilla's lips twitched understandingly. She had expected Mrs. Rachel up. She had known that the sight of Matthew jumping off so unaccountably would be too much for her neighbor's curiosity.
Oh no, I'm quite well, although I had a bad headache yesterday,
she said.
Matthew went to Bright River. We're getting a little boy from an orphan asylum in Nova Scotia, and he's coming on the train tonight.
If Marilla had said that Matthew had gone to Bright River to meet a kangaroo from Australia, Mrs. Rachel could not have been more astonished. She was actually stricken dumb for 5 seconds. It was unsupposable that Marilla was making fun of her, but Mrs. Rachel was almost forced to suppose it.
Are you in your earnest, Marilla?
She demanded when voice returned to her.
Yes, of course,
said Marilla, as if getting boys from orphan asylums in Nova Scotia were part of the usual spring work on any well-regulated Avonlea farm, instead of being an unheard-of innovation. Mrs. Rachel felt that she had received a severe mental jolt. She thought in exclamation points. A boy! Marilla and Matthew Cuthbert, of all people, adopting a boy! From an orphan asylum! Well, the world was certainly turning upside down. She would be surprised at nothing after this. Nothing!
What on earth put such a notion in your head?
She demanded disapprovingly. This had been done without her advice being asked, and must, perforce, be disapproved.
Well, we've been thinking about it for some time. All winter, in fact,
returned Marilla.
Mrs. Alexander Spencer was up here one day before Christmas, and she said she was going to get a little girl from the asylum over in Hopeton in the spring. Her cousin lives there, and Mrs. Spencer had visited her and knows all about it. So Matthew and I have talked it over off and on ever since. We thought we'd get a boy. Matthew is getting up in years, you know. He's 60, and he isn't so spry as he once was. His heart troubles him a good deal, and you know how desperate hard it's got to be to get hired help. There's never anybody to be had but those stupid, half-grown little French boys. And as soon as you do, you get one broke into your ways and taught something, he's up and off to the lobster canneries of the States. At first, Matthew suggested getting a homeboy, but I said no flat to that. They may be all right. I'm not saying they're not, but no London street Arabs for me, I said. Give me a native born at least. There'll be a risk, no matter who we get. But I feel easier in my mind and sleep sounder at nights if we get a born Canadian. So in the end, we decided to ask Miss Spencer to pick us out one when she went over to get her little girl. We heard last week she was going, so we sent her word by Richard Spencer's folks at Carmody to bring us a smart, likely boy of about 10 or 11. We decided that would be best, the best age. Old enough to be of some use in doing chores right off, and young enough to be trained up proper. We mean to give him a good home and schooling. We had a telegram from Mrs. Alexander Spencer today. The mailman brought it from the station, saying they were coming on the 5:30 train tonight. So Matthew went to Bright River to meet him. Mrs. Spencer will drop him off there. Of course, she goes on to White Sands Station herself.
Mrs. Rachel prided herself on always speaking her mind. She proceeded to speak it now, having adjusted her mental attitude to this amazing piece of news.
Well, Marilla, I will just tell you plain that I think you are doing a mighty foolish thing, a risky thing. That's what. You don't know what you are getting. You are bringing a strange child into your house and home, and you don't know a single thing about him, nor what his dispositions like, nor what sort of parents he had, nor how he's likely to turn out. Why, it was only last week I read in the paper how a man and his wife on the west of the island took a boy out of the orphan asylum, and he set fire to the house at night. Set it on purpose, Marilla. And nearly burned them to crisp in their beds. And I know another case where an adopted boy used to suck the eggs. They couldn't break him of it. If you had asked my advice in the matter, which you didn't do, Marilla, I just have said, for mercy's sakes, not to think of such thing. That's what.
This Job's comforting seemed neither to offend nor to alarm Marilla. She knitted steadily on.
I don't deny there's something in what you say, Rachel. I've had some qualms myself. But Matthew was terrible set on it. I could see that, so I gave in. It's so seldom Matthew sets his mind on anything that when he does, I always feel it's my duty to give in. And as for the risk, there's risks in pretty near everything a body does in this world. There's risks in people's having children of their own, if it comes to that. They don't always turn out well. And then Nova Scotia is right close to the island. It isn't as if we're getting him from the England or the States. He can't be much different from ourselves.
Well, I hope it will turn out all right,
said Mrs. Rachel in a tone that plainly indicated her painful doubts.
Only don't say I didn't warn you if he burns Green Gables down and put a stretching in the well. I heard of a case over in New Brunswick where an orphan asylum child did that and the whole family died in fearful agonies. Only it was a girl in that instance.
Well, we're not getting a girl,
said Marilla, as if poisoning wells were a purely feminine accomplishment and not to be dreaded in the case of a boy.
I'd never dream of taking a girl to bring up. I wonder at Mrs. Alexander Spencer for doing it. But there, she wouldn't shrink from adopting a whole orphan asylum if she took it into her head.
Mrs. Rachel would have liked to stay until Matthew came home with his imported sorry with his imported orphan. But reflecting that it would be a good 2 hours at least before his arrival, she concluded to go up to the road to Robert Bell's and tell the news. It would certainly make a sensation. It would certainly make a sensation second to none, and Mrs. Rachel dearly loved to make a sensation. So she took herself away, somewhat to Marilla's relief, for the latter felt her doubts and fears reviving under the influence of Mrs. Rachel's pessimism.
Well, of all things that ever were to or will be,
ejaculated Mrs. Rachel when she was safely out in the lane.
it doesn't really seem as if I must be dreaming. Well, I'm sorry for that poor young one, and no mistake. Matthew and Marilla don't know anything about children, and they will expect him to be wiser and steadier than his own grandfather. If so, bis he ever had a grandfather, which is doubtful. It seems uncanny to think of a child at Green Gables somehow. There's never been one there, for Matthew and Marilla were grown up when the new house was built. If there ever were children, which is hard to believe when one looks at them, it wouldn't be in that orphan's shoes for anything. My, but I pity him, that's what.
So said Mrs. Rachel to the wild rose bushes out of the fullness of her heart. But if she could have seen the child who was waiting patiently at the Bright River station at that very moment, her pity would have been still deeper and more profound. End of chapter. Okay, chapter 2. Matthew Cuthbert is surprised. Matthew Cuthbert and the sorrel mare jogged comfortably over the 8 miles to Bright River. It was a pretty road, running along between snug farmsteads, with now and again a bit of balsamy fir wood to drive through, or a hollow where wild plums hung out their filmy bloom. The air was sweet with the breath of many apple orchards, and the meadows sloped away in the distance to horizon mists of pearl and purple, while the little birds sang as if it were the one day of summer in all the year. Matthew enjoyed the drive after his own fashion, except during the moments when he met women and had to nod to them. For in Prince Edward Island, you're supposed to nod to all and sundry you meet on the road, whether you know them or not. Matthew dreaded all women except Marilla and Mrs. Rachel. He had an uncomfortable feeling that the mysterious creatures were secretly laughing at him. He may have been quite right in thinking so, for he was an odd-looking personage, with an ungainly figure and long iron-gray hair that touched his stooping shoulders, and a full, soft brown beard which he had worn ever since he was 20. In fact, he had looked at 20 very much as he looked at 60, lacking a little of the grayness. When he reached Bright River, there was no sign of any train. He thought he was too early, so he tied his horse in the yard of the small Bright River Hotel and went over to the station house. The long platform was almost deserted. The only living creature in sight was a girl who was sitting on a pile of shingles at the extreme end. Matthew, barely noting that it was a girl, sidled past her as quickly as possible without looking at her. Had he looked, he could have hardly failed to notice the tense rigidity and expectation of her attitude and expression. She was sitting there, waiting for something or somebody. And, since sitting and waiting was the only thing to do just then, she sat and waited with all her might and main. Matthew encountered the station master, locking up the ticket office preparatory to going home for supper, and asked him if the 5:30 train would soon be along. "The 5:30 train has been in and gone half an hour ago," answered that brisk official. "But there was a passenger dropped off for you. A little girl. She's sitting out there on the shingles. I asked her to go into the ladies' waiting room, but she informed me gravely that she preferred to stay outside. There was more scope for the imagination, she said. She's a case, I should say."
I'm not expecting a girl.
said Matthew blankly.
It's a boy I've come for. He should be here. Mrs. Alexander Spencer was to bring him over from Nova Scotia for me.
The station master whistled. "Well, as there's some mistake. Mrs. Spencer came off the train with that girl and gave her to my charge. Said you and your sister were adopting her from an orphan asylum and that you would be along for her presently. That's all I know about it, and I haven't got any more orphans concealed hereabouts,"
I don't understand.
said Matthew helplessly, wishing that Marilla was at hand to cope with the situation. "Well, you better question the girl," said the station master carelessly. "I dare say she'll be able to explain. She's got a tongue of her own, that's certain. Maybe they were out of boys of the brand you wanted." He walked away jauntily, being hungry, and the unfortunate Matthew was left to do that which was harder for him than bearding a lion in its den. Walk up to a girl, a strange girl, an orphan girl, and demand of her why she wasn't a boy. Matthew groaned in spirit as he turned about and shuffled gently down the platform toward her. She had been watching him ever since he had passed her, and she had her eyes on him now. Matthew was not looking at her and would not have seen that she was really what she was really like if he had been. But an ordinary observer would have seen this. A child of about 11, garbed in a very short, very tight, very ugly dress of yellowish-gray wincey. She wore a faded brown sailor hat, and beneath the hat, extending down her back, were 2 braids of very thick, decidedly red hair. Her face was small, white and thin, also much freckled. Her mouth was large, and so were her eyes, which looked green in some lights and moods, and gray in others. So far the ordinary observer. An extraordinary observer might have seen that the chin was very pointed and pronounced, that the big eyes were full of spirit and vivacity, that the mouth was sweet-lipped and expressive, that the forehead was broad and full. In short, our discerning extraordinary observer might have concluded that no commonplace soul inhabited the body of this stray woman-child, of whom shy Matthew Cuthbert was so ludicrously afraid. Matthew, however, was spared the ordeal of speaking first, for as soon as she concluded that he was coming to her, she stood up, grasping with one thin brown hand the handle of a shabby old-fashioned carpet-bag. The other she held out to him.
"I suppose you are Mr. Matthew Cuthbert of Green Gables?"
she said in a peculiarly clear, sweet voice.
I'm very glad to see you. I was beginning to be afraid you weren't coming for me, and I was imagining all the things that might have happened to prevent you. I had made up my mind that if you didn't come for me tonight, I'd go down the track to that big wild cherry tree at the bend and climb up into it to stay all night. I wouldn't be a bit afraid, and it would be lovely to sleep in a white cherry tree, all white with bloom in the moonshine. Don't you think? You could imagine you were dwelling in marble halls, couldn't you? And I was quite sure you would come for me in the morning if you didn't tonight.
Matthew had taken the scrawny little hand awkwardly in his. Then and there, he decided what to do. He could not tell this child with the glowing eyes that there had been a mistake. He would take her home and let Marilla do that. She couldn't be left at Bright Rivers anyhow, no matter what mistake had been made. So all questions and explanations might as well be deferred until he was safely back at Green Gables.
I'm sorry I was late,
He said shyly.
Come along. The horse is over in the yard. Give me your bag.
Oh, I can carry it.
She replied cheerfully.
It isn't heavy. I've got all my worldly goods in it, but it isn't heavy. And if it isn't carried in just a certain way, the handle pulls out. So I'd better keep it up because I know the exact knack of it. It's an extremely old carpet bag. Oh, I'm very glad you've come. Even if it would have been nice to sleep in a wild cherry tree. We've got to drive a long piece, haven't we? Mrs. Spencer said it was 8 miles. I'm glad because I love driving. Oh, it seems so wonderful that I'm going to live with you and belong to you. I've never belonged to anybody, not really. But the asylum was the worst. I've only been in it for 4 months, but that was enough. I don't suppose you ever were an orphan in an asylum, so you can't possibly understand. It is like it's worse than anything you could imagine. Mrs. Spencer said that it was wicked of me to talk like that, but I didn't mean to be wicked. It's so easy to be wicked without knowing it, isn't it? They were good, you know, the asylum people, but there is so little scope for the imagination in an asylum, only just in the other orphans. It was pretty interesting to imagine things about them, to imagine that perhaps the girl who sat next to you was really the daughter of a belated earl who had been stolen away from her parents in her infancy by cruel nurse who died before she could confess. I used to lie awake at night and imagine things like that because I didn't have time in that day. I guess that's why I'm so thin. I am dreadful thin, ain't I? There isn't a pick on my bones. I do love to imagine I'm nice and plump with dimples in my elbows.
With this, Matthew's companion stopped talking, partly because she was out of breath and partly because they had reached the buggy. Not another word did she say until they had left the village and were driving down a steep little hill, the road part of which had been cut so deeply into the soft soil that the banks, fringed with blooming wild cherry trees and slim white birches, were several feet above their heads. The child put out her hand and broke off a branch of wild plum that brushed against the side of the buggy.
Isn't that beautiful? What did that tree leaning out from the bank, all white and lacy, make you think of? Didn't hear me?
Patrick!
I heard you. I didn't know if Magpie was going to do the
Oh,
she
sorry,
asked
sorry.
part. Well, now, I don't know.
Said Matthew.
Why, a bride, of course, a bride all in white with a lovely misty veil. I've never seen one, but I can imagine what she would look like. I don't ever expect to be a bride myself. I'm so homely, nobody will ever want to marry me unless it might be a foreign missionary. I suppose a foreign missionary might be very particular. But I do hope that someday I shall have a white dress that is my highest ideal of earthly bliss. I just love pretty clothes, and I've never had a pretty dress in my life that I can remember, but of course it's all the more to look forward to, isn't it? And and then I can imagine that I'm dressed gorgeously. This morning when I left the asylum, I felt so ashamed because I had to wear this horrid old wincey dress. All the orphans had to wear them, you know. A merchant in Happy Town last winter donated 300 yards of wincey to the asylum. Some people said it was because he couldn't sell it, but I'd rather believe that it was out of the kindness of his heart, wouldn't you? When I go on the train, I felt as if everybody must be looking at me and pitying me, but I just went to work and imagined that I had on the most beautiful pale blue silk dress, because when you are imagining, you might as well imagine something worthwhile. And a big hat, all flowers and nodding plumes, and a gold watch, and kid gloves and boots. I felt cheered up right away, and I enjoyed my trip to the island with all my might. I wasn't a bit sick coming over in the coming over in the boat. Neither was Mrs. Spencer, although she generally is. She said she hadn't time to get sick, watching to see that I wouldn't fall overboard. She said she never saw a bit of me for prowling about, but if it kept her from being seasick, it's mercy I did prowl, isn't it? And I wanted to see everything that was to be seen on that boat, because I don't know whether I'd ever have another opportunity. Oh, there are a lot of cherry trees, all in bloom. Island is the bloomiest place. I just love it already, and I'm so glad I'm going to live here. I've always heard that Prince Edward Island was the prettiest place in the world, and I used to imagine that I was living here, but I never really expected I would. It's delightful when your imaginations came true, isn't it? Those red roads are so funny. When we got into the train at Charlottetown and the red roads began to flash past, I asked Mrs. Spencer what made them red, and she said she didn't know, and for pity's sake not to ask her any more questions. She said I must have asked for 1,000 already. I suppose I had to, but how are you going to find out about things if you don't ask questions? And what does make the roads red?
Well, now, I don't know,
said Matthew.
Well, that is one of the things to find out sometime. Isn't it splendid to think of all the things that there are to find about? It just makes me feel glad to be alive. It's such an interesting world. It wouldn't be half so interesting if we knew all about everything, wouldn't it? There'd be no scope for imagination then, would there? But am I talking too much? People are always telling me I do. Would you rather I didn't talk? If you say so, I'll stop. I can stop when I make up my mind to it, although it's difficult.
Matthew, much to his own surprise, was enjoying himself. Like most quiet folk, he liked talkative people when they were willing to do the talking themselves and did not expect him to keep up his end of it. But he had never expected to enjoy the society of a little girl. Women were bad enough in all conscience, but little girls were worse. He detested the way they had of sidling past him timidly, with sidewise glances, as if they expected him to gobble them up at a mouthful if they ventured to say a word. That was the Avonlea type of well-bred little girl. But this freckled witch was very different, and although he found it rather difficult for his slower intelligence to keep up with her brisk mental process, he thought that he kind of liked her chatter. So he said as shyly as usual,
Oh, you can talk as much as you like. I don't mind.
Oh, I'm so glad. I know you and I are going to get along together fine. It's such a relief to talk when one wants to and not be told that children should be seen and not heard. I've had that to me a million times if I have one. If I have once. And people laugh at me because I use big words, but if you have big ideas, you have to use big words to express them, haven't you?
Well, now, that seems reasonable,
said Matthew.
Mrs. Spencer said that my tongue must be hung in the middle, but it isn't. It's firmly fastened at one end. Mrs. Spencer said your place was named Green Gables. I asked her all about it, and she said there were trees all around it. I was gladder than ever. I just love trees, and there weren't any at all about the asylum. Only a few poor, whiny, tiny things out in front with a little whitewashed, cagey things about them. They just look like orphans themselves. Those trees did. It used to make me want to cry to look at them. I used to say to them, "Oh, you poor little things. If you were out in a great big woods with other trees all around you, and you were and you and little Moses and June bells growing over your roots and the brook not far away and birds singing in your branches, you could grow, couldn't you? But you can't where you are. I know just exactly how you feel, little trees. I felt so sorry to leave them behind this morning. You do get so attached to things like that, don't you? Is there a brook anywhere near Green Gables? I forgot to ask Miss Spencer that."
Well, now, yes. There's one right below the house.
And see, I've always been one of my dreams to live near a brook. I never expected I would, though. Dreams don't often come true, do they? Wouldn't it be nice if they did? But just now I feel pretty nearly perfectly happy. I can't feel exactly perfectly happy because, well, what color would you call this?
She twitched one of her long, glossy braids over her thin shoulder and held it up before Matthew's eyes. Matthew was not used to deciding on the tints of ladies' dresses, but in this case, there couldn't be much doubt.
It's red, ain't it?
He said. The little girl let the braid drop back with a sigh that seemed to come from her very toes and to exhale forth all the sorrows of the ages.
Yes, it's red,
she said resignedly.
Now you see why I can't be perfectly happy. Nobody who has red hair. I don't mind the other things so much, the freckles and the green eyes and my skinniness. I can imagine them away. I can imagine that I have a beautiful rose leaf complexion and lovely starry violet eyes. But I cannot imagine the red hair away. I do my best. I think to myself, now my hair is a glorious black as the raven's wing. But all the time I know, it is just plain red, and it breaks my heart. It will be my lifelong sorrow. I read of a girl once in a novel who had a lifelong sorrow, but it wasn't red hair. Her hair was pure gold, rippling back from her alabaster brow. What is an alabaster brow? I never could find out. Can you tell me?
Well, no, I'm afraid I can't,
said Matthew, who was getting a little dizzy. He felt as he had once felt in his rash youth when another boy had enticed him on the merry-go-round at a picnic.
Well, whatever it was, it must have been something nice because she was divinely beautiful. Have you ever imagined what it must feel like to be divinely beautiful?
Well, no, I haven't,
confessed Matthew ingenuously.
I have, often. Which would you rather be if you had the choice? Divinely beautiful, or dazzlingly clever, or angelically good?
Well, now, I don't know exactly.
Neither do I. I can never decide, but it doesn't make much real difference for it. Isn't like I'll ever be either. It's certain I'll never be angelically good. Miss Spencer says, "Oh, Mr. Cuthbert, oh, Mr. Cuthbert, oh, Mr. Cuthbert."
That was not what Mrs. Spencer had said. Neither had the child tumbled out of the buggy, nor had Matthew done anything astonishing. They had simply rounded a curve in the road and found themselves in the avenue. The avenue, so called by the Newbridge people, was a stretch of road 400 or 500 yards long, completely arched over with huge, wide-spreading apple trees planted years ago by an eccentric old farmer. Overhead was one long canopy of snowy, fragrant bloom. Below the boughs, the air was full of a purple twilight, and far ahead a glimpse of painted sunset sky shone like a great rose window at the end of a cathedral aisle. Its beauty seemed to strike the child dumb. She leaned back in the buggy, her thin hands clasped before her, her face lifted rapturously to the white splendor above. Even when they had passed out and were driving down the long slope to Newbridge, she never moved or spoke. Still, with rapt face she gazed afar into the sunset west, with eyes that saw visions trooping splendidly across that glowing background. Through Newbridge, a bustling little village, where dogs barked at them and small boys hooted and curious faces peered from the windows, they drove, still in silence. When 3 more miles had dropped away behind them, the child had not spoken. She could keep silence, it was evident, as energetically as she could talk.
I guess you're feeling pretty tired and hungry.
Matthew ventured to say at last, accounting for her long visitation of dumbness with the only reason he could think of.
We haven't very far to go now, only another mile.
She came out of her reverie with a deep sigh, and looked at him with the dreamy gaze of a soul that had been wandering afar, star-led.
Mr. Cuthbert,
She whispered.
that place we came through, that white place, what was it?
Well now, you must mean the avenue.
Said Matthew after a few moments' profound reflection.
It is a kind of pretty place.
Pretty? Oh, pretty doesn't seem the right word to use, nor beautiful either. It don't go far enough. Oh, it was wonderful, wonderful. It's the first thing I ever saw that couldn't be improved upon by imagination. It just satisfied me here.
She put one hand on her breast.
It made a queer, funny ache, and yet it was a pleasant ache. Did you ever have an ache like that, Mr. Cuthbert?
Well now, I can't recollect I ever had.
I have it lots of times. Whenever I see anything royally beautiful, but they shouldn't call that lovely place the Avenue. There is no meaning in a name like that. They should call it, let me see, the White Day of Delight. Isn't that a nice imaginative name? When I don't like the name of a place or a person, I always imagine a new one and always think of them so. There was a girl at the asylum whose name was Hepzibah Jenkins, but I always imagined her as Rosalia de Vere. Other people may call that place the Avenue, but I shall always call it the White Way of Delight. Really, only another mile to go before we get home. I'm glad, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry because this drive has been so pleasant, and I'm always sorry when pleasant things end. Something still pleasanter may come after, but you can never be sure. And it's so often the case that it isn't pleasanter. That has been my experience anyhow, but I am glad to think of getting home. You see, I've never had a real home since I can remember. It gives me that pleasant ache again, just to think of coming to a really truly home. Oh, isn't that pretty?
They had driven over the crest of a hill. Below them was a pond, looking almost like a river, so long and winding was it. A bridge spanned it midway, and from there to its lower end, where an amber-hued belt of sand-hills shut it in from the dark blue gulf beyond. The water was a glory of many shifting hues, the most spiritual shadings of crocus and rose and ethereal green, with other elusive tintings for which no name has ever been found. Above the bridge, the pond ran up into fringing groves of fir and maple, and lay all darkly translucent in their wavering shadows. Here and there a wild plum leaned out from the bank like a white-clad girl tiptoeing to her own reflection. But from the marsh at the head of the pond came the clear, mournfully sweet chorus of the frogs. There was a little grey house peering around a white apple orchard on a slope beyond, and although it was not quite dark, a light was shining from one of its windows.
That's Barry's pond.
Oh, I don't like that name either. I shall call it, let me see, Lake of Shining Waters. Yes, that is the right name for it. I know because of the thrill. When I hit on a name that suits exactly, it gives me a thrill. Do things ever give you a thrill?
Matthew ruminated.
Well, now, yes. It always kind of gives me a thrill to see them ugly white grubs that spade up in the cucumber beds. I hate the look of them.
Oh, I don't think that can be exactly the same kind of thrill. Do you think it can? There doesn't seem to be much connection between grubs and lakes of shining waters, does there? But why do other people call it Barry's Pond?
I reckon because Mr. Barry lives up there in that house. Orchard Slope's the name of his place. If it wasn't for that big bush behind it, you could you could see Green Gables from here. But we have to go over the bridge and round by round, so it's near half a mile further.
Has Mr. Barry any little girls? Well, not so very little either. About my size.
He's got one about 11. Her name's Diana.
Oh,
With a long indrawing of breath,
what a perfectly lovely name!
Well, now, I don't know. There's something dreadful heathenish about it, seems to me. I'd rather Jane or Mary, or some sensible name like that. But when Diana was born, there was a schoolmaster boarding there, and they gave him the naming of her, and he called her Diana.
I wish there had been a schoolmaster like that around when I was born then. Oh, here we are at the bridge. I'm going to shut my eyes tight. I'm always afraid of going over bridges. I can't help imagining that perhaps just as we get to the middle, they'll crumble up like a jackknife and nip us. So I shut my eyes, but I always have to open them for all when I think we're getting near the middle. Because you see, if the bridge did crumble up, I'd want to see it crumble. What a jolly rumble it makes. I always like the rumble part of it. Isn't it splendid? There are so many things to like in this world. There, we're over. Now I look back. Good night, dear lake of shining waters. I always say good night to the things I love, just as I would to people. I think they like it. That water looks as if it was smiling at me.
when they had driven up the further hill and around a corner, Matthew said,
We're pretty near home now. That's Green Gables over.
Oh, don't tell me.
She interrupted breathlessly, catching at his partially raised arm and shutting her eyes that she might not see his gesture.
Let me guess. I'm sure I'll guess right.
She opened her eyes and looked about her. They were on the crest of a hill. The sun had set some time since, but the landscape was still clear in the mellow afterlight. To the west, a dark church spire rose up against the marigold sky. Below was a little valley, and beyond, a long, gently rising slope with snug farmsteads scattered along it. From one to another the child's eyes darted, eager and wistful. At last they lingered on one away to the left, far back from the road, dimly white with blossoming trees in the twilight of the surrounding woods. Over it, in the stainless southwest sky, a great crystal white star was shining like a lamp of guidance and promise.
It's it, isn't it?
she said, pointing. Matthew slapped the reins on the sorrel's back delightedly.
Well, now you've guessed it. But I guess Mrs. Spencer described it so's you could tell.
No, she didn't. Really, she didn't. What she said might just as well have been about most of those other places. I hadn't any real idea what it looked like, but just as soon as I saw it, I felt like it was home. Oh, it seems as if I must be in a dream. Do you know, my arm must be black and blue from the elbow up. I've pinched myself so many times today. Every little while a horrible, sickening feeling would come over me, and I'd be so afraid it was all a dream. Then I'd pinch myself to see if it was real, until suddenly I remembered that even supposing it was only a dream, I'd better go on dreaming as long as I could. So I stopped pinching. But it is real, and we're nearly home.
With a sigh of rapture, she relapsed into silence. Matthew stirred uneasily. He felt glad that it would be Marilla and not he who would have to tell this waif of the world that the home she longed for was not to be hers after all. They drove over Lynde's Hollow, where it was already quite dark, but not so dark that Mrs. Rachel could not see them from her window vantage, and up the hill and into the long lane of Green Gables. By the time they arrived at the house, Matthew was shrinking from the approaching revelation with an energy he did not understand. It was not of Marilla or himself that he was thinking, or of the trouble this mistake was probably going to make for them, but of the child's disappointment. When he thought of that rapt light being quenched in her eyes, he had an uncomfortable feeling that he was going to assist at murdering something, much the same feeling that came over him when he had to kill a lamb, or calf, or any other innocent little creature. The yard was quite dark as they turned into it, and the poplar leaves were rustling silkily all around it.
Listen to the trees talking in their sleep,
she whispered as he lifted her to the ground.
What nice dreams they must have.
Then, holding tightly to the carpet bag which contained all her worldly goods, she followed him into the house. End of chapter. All right, folks, how about a break? Or, I don't know, it's 5:08. We've been reading an hour. Let's stop here for now. I didn't expect that it would...
Sure?
It's going to take us a bit to get through the next chapter. And I think it's nice to take our time with it. I think it's 2 chapters is good.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah?
Yeah, around an hour for each session sounds good.
Yeah, also, you need a break.
My goodness,
job,
girl, you've been
Yukihime.
doing a great job.
Oh my gosh, bravo, Yukihime.
Thank you.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
that's just my normal voice when speaking in Romanian. Like, that's how I talk normally, so it's okay.
Oh, so you got practice. Okay, cool. Good to know then.
I mean, after watching the first episode of Anne Shirley, we all pretty much guessed, hey, Yukihime, you're probably going to be the right choice for her.
Yeah, so, usually what we do for these read-alongs is first come, first serve. Eventually...
rotating.
Yeah.
Rotating, everybody gets a chance.
Yeah,
I'm all
eventually
for
though,
equality.
it does happen that somebody gets typecast and nobody will get their role. I don't know why it happened. Like when we did A World Away, nobody would take Ferdinand because that was JC Fergie's role. And nobody would take Eckhart because that was Patrick's role. So even though they made it late or whatever, people just kind of like hold off. So we'll see if that happens. I think you did an excellent job. Everybody did such a good job.
When we come to love someone in a certain role, we're like, we need that person to take that role.
I'm just remembering Hire Me with Chaosopher. So good. Very, very good too. But
I was just thinking, I broke all of those rules. I was Ferdinand. I was Eckhart.
You were.
I was about to say that, you know what? Teal was a great Eckhart when she got the chance.
Yeah, Teal, you got a very, very good voice. You can do like lots of people, and you have done them. By the way, you guys.
And that's because I was timed out for my mischief.
Yes. By the way, you guys, as I was reading the chapter, I realized that I mentioned everybody who read, but I did not mention who highlighted. You guys, we are reading this thanks so much to the work of Hiremi and Teal, both of whom have taken turns to highlight these chapters so that it would be so much easier for us to read. So again, thank you so much, ladies, for doing this for us. It would not be easy or fun to do it without your work.
Aw, shucks.
It's easy. Some lines contain stuck so much that we highlight a whole page only with her color.
Yeah, Anne is such a little chatterbox. So I'm imagining a lot of people, or maybe there's a good number of people that haven't watched the anime, so we'll leave the discussion of the anime to maybe the anime. You can put the comments when I release the anime novel comparison, you can put it in there, or
But I want to say something now.
Well, just because there's I don't know if there's everybody who is. Oh, okay, fine. Just say it. Go ahead.
I was joking.
Okay.
I didn't actually mean that.
All right. So
Are we talking about spoilers for 110-year-old book?
No. I just didn't want our conversation to center around comparing the anime to the book. I wasn't.
I get it.
Also, there are people though that haven't read this book and they're experiencing it firsthand with us. So I also don't want to like talk too much about the events. I mean, it's kind of evident based on that for all the misunderstanding or the miscommunication that happened, Anne is going to stay at Green Gables. I mean, that's the name of the book, Anne of Green Gables. It's not Anne of the
my
Orphanage,
god,
so-
spoilers. Jeez.
Oh my gosh! And they reject orphan.
Right. I just gotta say though, if you guys read with me The Blue Castle, then this writing style may seem familiar to you. But for those of you who are new to Ella Montgomery's, you will notice that there is she has her own style. She delighted in nature. So she was in love. She really loved the place where she grew up. She did grow up in Prince Edward Island. She based this book on a very real location, a town called Cavendish, I believe. And the actual place, Green Gables, I don't know if it's the original place that she based it on or whatnot, but it stands in that same town in Prince Edward Island. You can go and it's a beautiful place. So Ella Montgomery really, really loved her town, and you can see it show through in her writing. A lot of times I'm like, what is a Lombardy? What is a poplar? Well, she knows what it is, so she knows all about her trees and her flowers. So you'll see.
What is strychnine that some orphan girl had put in the well?
Yeah, well, be careful with your Google search history. Yeah. So we got that. Also, she likes to do like poke gentle fun at your usual town characters. So you got Rachel Lynn, the busybody. She treats them with just like gentle humor. So she's never harsh. She's never like. She treats everybody with a certain level of humor, but also with like compassion. So she never is like treats any of the characters badly. At least neighbors and stuff. I forget if there's anybody who's actually bad. But even the most unlikable character may be redeemable. You never know. Crusher says she makes it seem as if Canada is a magical wonderland of fun and whimsy, right? Maybe in the 1800s it was, or maybe it still is. The one person I know that might know around that area, none of the Canadians are here. What? None of the Canadians in our server are here.
Fergie! Noemi! Why aren't you here?
Ed also. None of them are here.
Oh yeah, Ed.
But I did hear that if you go to Prince Edward Island and you go in August, you're making the biggest mistake of your life, because the island is so beautiful that you will never get the beauty out of your system. You will always just be comparing everything to the beauty that you will see in Prince Edward Island. And I'm like, wow, okay, I have to be sure to go in August then. And that led, of course, to me looking up real estate in Prince Edward Island. I was like, well, if I can't buy a house here in California, then I wonder, like, how if I could buy a house in Canada, right?
Oh, no.
Oh, God, no.
I know where this is going.
I know exactly. Yeah, no, that's not happening in Canada.
Well, anyway, suffice it to say that while I was exploring just Prince Edward Island, I was like, it's so beautiful. What a lovely idyllic place, you guys. And it shows through in her writing. I hope that you enjoyed her writing style. We will be reading the rest of the book. What do you guys think? Should we continue reading it here or in the other place? I think probably the other place.
I think off the main channel is probably good. You get more monetization, and I think a lot of your fans who don't follow you on your other channel will be able to enjoy it here.
All right. So since I'm going to be covering this one in the channel, I might as well tie it up. Tie it to here. But don't forget, if you want to hear me read other stuff, I've already covered on my Reads channel. I covered The Blue Castle, which was also written by Ella Montgomery, the same author as Anne of Green Gables. I did The Blue Castle, I did Persuasion, I did Jane Eyre, we did A World Away, which is a fanfic, which I just completed. It's a Sense of a Bookworm fanfic. Pretty fun, good stuff. So head on over to that channel if you want to read our back catalog. For now, what did you guys think of this? For those of you especially who had not read this in a while, anything that struck you, or if you hadn't read the book at all, anything that you found interesting or struck
so
you?
I haven't read the book at all. I only watched the Netflix series with an E, and like it was very interesting now seeing a lot more of Matthew's perspective and inner thoughts. Like that was very interesting actually.
Yeah, having one chapter that was all in Matthew's perspective was a neat, something neat. Because usually Matthew's just so silent. It's so hard to get into like his thoughts. So she devoted an entire chapter on him. I like that too.
I was really enjoying the characterization. So, she took time to. I guess it's a way of showing without telling, showing how Mrs. Rachel is the community snoop. She's that person who sticks her nose into everything, and well, everything needs to go by me because if I don't approve, then it's just wrong. And in her observations of Matthew, you can tell that he's very much an introvert and doesn't really, reach out to anybody. Mm-hmm. So him leaving without any real reason is just completely out of the ordinary for him. And of course, you get a peek at his sister's mentality, how she's no nonsense and all about order and business, and don't you dare go against her.
Yeah, Rachel Lynde is a character. We'll get to see a little bit more of her afterwards, and I think you'll enjoy. Imagine the temperament of Rachel Lynde meeting Anne. What kind of encounter will there be? Stay tuned. We will get there. So, I also like how Ellen Montgomery attributes like things to their owners, characters. So, for example, the little brook that ran past Rachel Lynde's house is well behaved because it knows that it's in the property of Rachel Lynde, right? So it's very sedate, very proper. Also, we get the description of Marilla, of Green Gables, the yard. The yard is very clean, very well swept, very neat and tidy, just like Marilla, who is a no-nonsense kind of woman. There's other descriptors there that show you like about the character without actually like saying like, yes, she's a neat and tidy woman. No, they use like their surroundings kind of to bring about more characterization. Yeah. Also, by the way, I do have to say, while we were reading, I was very surprised to see all kinds of flashes of green. Again, thank you and welcome to Patrick, who is now a member at the Noble tier. Also, Crusher, who appears to have also gifted some memberships. Thank you, Crusher. Says, cool, an Anne of Green Gables stream. I have neither read the books or watched the anime, but even I know this series has a good rep. We'll join soon. Okay, welcome, Crusher. How are you?
Crusher, you can
My
talk
voice
now.
is kind of hoarse, but other than that, I'm doing good.
Happy to see you. And again, thank you for gifting and supporting this channel. Again, there's something, I think you can gift. What I saw was people gifting memberships. I hope that works out for everybody. I see people, I hope you know how to receive it. Anyway, so do check out what perks there are. I'll be adding more stuff soon for the members only tiers if you have Noble or above.
Remember, if you got a gifted membership, 1, it's free to you. 2, it will end after a month. So if you want to continue the membership, I would recommend you re-up on your own.
Wowzers. You guys are amazing. Look at that. One gifted one membership, gifted 5 memberships. Teal gifted 10 memberships. Wow, you guys are amazing. I'm not quite sure exactly how they work and how YouTube assigns the gifting, but just receive it with gratitude. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Teal. Thank you, Crusher, for gifting those memberships. And if you want to receive them, you do have to make sure that you go to your settings and set it to accept gifted memberships, because otherwise you won't be able to receive one. So yeah, just a heads up. If you have any questions about that, probably Google it, because I've never been on the receiving end of a membership. I've just been the dispenser. All right, so I see we got a good amount of people here who have been gifted. I hope you enjoy it. By the way, I am covering, for those of you who got here late during the stream, I am covering Anne Shirley, the anime. It's airing on Saturdays, so I'm covering that on my channel. That's why we're going to be reading Anne of Green Gables here. The entire first book. So yes, we will be reading it here.
You mean it's not just because you're a fan?
No. If it were just because of a fan, I could have been reading all kinds of books here. I want to kind of keep it a little bit separate. But because we're doing anime, covering the anime, then we'll be reading it here. The good thing also is that because this is public domain, J Noble Club can't get at me and shut me down. Which was what almost happened the other day with A Sense of a Bookworm and Apothecary Diaries. I mean, it's fair.
I mean, so Japan is pretty litigious about that, so that is something to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. Also, good morning, Akihana. Happy to see you. So with that, we end today's stream. I hope you all enjoyed it. We are going to be reading Wednesdays and Fridays. So if you are interested in joining us, hop on over to a Discord server and become a member at a noble tier and above. You can join the Discord server, join all the watch parties. We're watching Anne of Green Gables on Sunday afternoons or Sunday mornings, depends on times. So anyway, we do all kinds of stuff in the server too. But for now, I think I think we're good, right? Yes. Okay.
What will you be reading in the other channel then? In the reading?
So we're going to put a hold on, since I just decided like right now that we're just going to read in this channel instead of the reads channel, then we're just going to pause the reading over there. Once we finish the first book and we start Count of Monte Cristo, we will then go back to the reads channel. Yeah? Yes.
Oakley dokley.
Okie dokie. There's like 30 something chapters, so we'll have plenty to read. I think we'll be good. We'll have plenty of stuff to talk about here. All right. So thank you so much, you guys, for joining today. I hope you join us on Friday. We read Wednesdays 4 p.m. Pacific, Fridays 1 p.m. Pacific. So thank you for joining us, and I hope to catch you on the next one. Again, thank you to all the people who read today. We had Rachel was read by Haremy, Marilla was read by Teal, Station Official was me, Matthew was read by Patrick, and Anne was read by Yukihime. Highlights, thank you to Haremy and Teal who did a stellar job with it. And to all of you supporters, really appreciate you for supporting my channel. All right. I think that's all, everybody. Take care, everybody. I love you so much. We'll see you on Friday. Say bye-bye, gang.
Bye-bye, gang.
Bye.
Adios.
See ya.
Bye.